Thank you very much. 4 years ago, we began a journey at Stockholm Public Library. The technical platform that we had were basically falling apart. And we managed to fund a project with the aim to build a brand new digital library from the ground up. We wrote down some guiding principles going into that project. And the first guiding principle was that we wanted to use IT as a tool for business development. We wanted IT to support activities in both the physical and the digital library. The second guiding principle was that we wanted to make better possibilities to work with accessibility. And the third one was user experience. Libraries today are competing with services like iTunes, Amazon, Netflix, Spotify, just to mention a few. And user expectations are rising very fast. And this is something that libraries have to adapt to and respond to. So for the last 4 years, this is what we have been working on in Stockholm, at Stockholm Public Library. We started to look at the users. We have been working with a method called effect managing. It's a method where you start to define your target audiences into categories. And we have those categories are called personas. We have about 19 personas, so it's just a few that you see there in the bottom. Let's see. Could I get the next slide, please? Thank you. Personas. When you work with effect managing as a method, you start by defining those personas. They are target audiences that are not demographical. So you don't divide them into young people and the elderly. You divide them into categories according to how they want to use the digital library and what kind of needs they have. So you can see a few of them. The book lover, and the book lover is divided into subcategories as well. You then look at each persona, and you look at what kind of functionality and information can we give this persona that creates the greatest effect for them, that satisfy their needs in the digital library. After you've done that, you have a great material, a great knowledge of your users and what kind of needs they have. The next step was to build a technical platform. And we have rebuilt the whole technical platform using open source software. It's to make it possible for us to collaborate with other libraries developing the digital library. It's for you, those of you who are interested in technology, it's a Solar index with a Drupal CMS. The next step was to create what's called APIs. APIs makes it possible for us to connect our system with systems outside of the library. It makes it possible to integrate media, content, and different forms of data. We have integrated ebooks from the 2 distributors who are active in Sweden. And we have integrated talking books from the authority who is responsible for accessible media in Sweden. So just to give you a clue, we're talking about ebooks today, focusing on ebooks. Just to give you a clue when I say that we integrate ebooks. In this case, this is a screenshot from our digital library. In this case, the user has made a search after a book, clicked on the ebook, and the user in this case don't have to leave the digital library in order to check out the ebook. He or she can just choose format and then download it. So it's one login and it's one interface. In many instances at other libraries, they send the users away to new logins and new authentications and new user interfaces as well. Okay, so now we need the books. In most parts of the world, license-based models are established. Very common in the United States and in many other parts of the world as well. In this case, the library pays a fee to get access to the platform, often depending on how many people living in the area that they serve. The library then buys licenses for the title that they want to make available. If they have 10 licenses to a title, 10 patrons can check out ebooks at the same time. The rest have to stay in line. So there is queuing to ebooks here. The result is long queues for popular titles and often very expensive. So the result is very few titles as well. So even though there are about 2.5 million titles of English ebooks, the common library in the United States has about maybe 10, 15, 20,000 titles out of 2.5 million. In Sweden, we have a model called, sometimes we call it the Swedish model, and sometimes we call it the access-based model. We don't pay a fee to get hold of the catalog, but every time a user checks out an ebook, it costs about €2. And but there's no limitation to the number of concurrent loans. So and no queuing for ebooks, therefore. So let's look, if you work actively with user experience and you have the Swedish model, let's look what kind of impact you get in the digital library. The Swedish model was introduced in 2001. Here's a graph of the increase of loans during the period 2005 until now. And it has been a huge increase of loans. It's interesting to see what happened in 2010. It was the time when Bluefire Reader made it possible to handle Adobe DRM. So library users could check out ebooks from the library and then read them on their iPads or on their iPhones. It was later possible on Android as well. So that iPads are extremely important for ebook reading in Sweden. And you can see by this increase that if you look at the ebook share of the total amount of loans, it has gone from about 1% 3 years ago, and now it's about 6-7% of the total amount of loans. But it's still only 7%. I think one reason for that is that we have so few titles in Swedish. There are only about 9,000 titles of ebooks in Swedish. So that's probably one of the reasons that we haven't seen more developing. But you always need to dig deeper into data, and sometimes if you do so, you learn new things. Okay, so it's about 7% of the total amount of loans. But if we look at the specific segment, in this case the top list, you will see that the ebook checkouts are more than 50% of the total amount of loans on the top list. So it's meeting demand. It's a great possibility for libraries to meet demands with this model. And we are attracting new users. I think this is one of the most interesting aspects of what's happening right now. We have about 1,200 new ebook users every month in Stockholm. And it's also interesting if you look at specific periods. We had a peak of new user, the increase of new users, in October this year. Can you guess what happened in then? Anyone? Oh, I didn't hear. If you guessed on the announcement of the Nobel Prize winner, Alice Munro, that was what happened. So certain incidents of things that happen, we can see that in the statistics. I will get back to Alice Munro in just a while. Just to get this growth in perspective. The growth, we have 40 branches in Stockholm. So we're one organization responsible for the libraries, the public libraries in the city of Stockholm. We have 40 branches. And the growth of the digital library has been equal to a mid-sized branch every year. So it's a huge growth. We've gone from being the smallest library, because we consider it to be one of the branches, from one of the smallest branches to the second largest or the third largest. It's very even there in just a few years. Okay, Alice Munro again. When it was announced that she had won the Nobel Prize in Literature, we had one of her books as an ebook. And that title, we had 40 printed copies. The day they announced it, those 40 copies were gone. They were checked out immediately. And we were not able to have more than 40 loans of the printed book. At that week, the following week, we had 780 loans of the ebook. And there is nothing in the Swedish model to stop that. So it's a way of meeting demand that is astonishing. So 9 out of 10 checkouts were ebook. So to wrap it up, ebooks are definitely, it's a possibility that ebooks can create new opportunities for libraries. Especially if you get to know your users, and if you tailor your digital library to meet their demands and their needs. Combined with the Swedish model, it's a very interesting combination with a lot of opportunity. And I've been in negotiations both locally and nationally, and I would say do whatever you can not to hard code friction into the model itself. The libraries don't have an infinite amount of money, far from it. It's very hard with budgets all over the world. So we will not be able to meet demand. But as long as the friction is not hard-coded into the model, we can choose when to remove friction and meet demand. And that is the core function of a library. So defend your right to decide how and when you want to meet demand. And it's a very complex task, building a digital library. So it's not possible to do it all at once. So just take small steps and learn while you're doing it. If you just make sure you have a vision and a plan, and just start small, it will be a lot of fun, and I'm sure that you will be very successful. Thank you.